History is often written by the victors, yet beneath the surface of wars, revolutions, and empires, there exist forces rarely acknowledged, quietly shaping the course of human civilization. Imagine a society so elusive, so intricately woven into the fabric of history, that its presence is felt not through overt power but through subtle influence, guiding the evolution of nations, technologies, and ideas from the shadows. This is not a tale of conspiracies in the sensational sense, but of patterns, structures, and the psychology of control that underpin collective human behavior. It is a story where history itself becomes an experiment in adaptation, and where a secret society, if we may call it that, functions less as a cabal of tyrants and more as an unseen regulatory system, maintaining the delicate equilibrium of social evolution. The question arises, what if the most significant shifts in civilization were not random or entirely organic, but subtly guided by agents operating beyond the perception of ordinary observers? To understand this, we must explore history through multiple lenses: neuroscience, social psychology, philosophy, and the study of systemic patterns, uncovering how a small network of strategically positioned individuals could influence events without ever drawing attention to themselves. From the earliest known civilizations, human societies have been inherently adaptive systems. Tribes, kingdoms, and empires face constant pressures: environmental, technological, social, and psychological, and those pressures trigger collective responses. In neuroscience, we understand adaptation as the brain's ability to modify synaptic connections in response to new stimuli. On a macro scale, societies exhibit a similar process. Collective behaviors adjust in response to stressors, internal conflicts, and external threats. A secret society operating within this framework does not need to coerce or dominate openly. It can act as a stimulus, shaping the inputs to the social system so that the resulting adaptation aligns with its broader objectives. The human brain, like society, is highly sensitive to the sequencing and framing of information. A carefully timed piece of knowledge, a seemingly minor technological innovation, or even the strategic placement of leaders in positions of power can ripple through society, generating massive historical effects. Much like a small synaptic change can alter perception, decision-making, and memory. Consider, for instance, the Renaissance. While celebrated as an explosion of human creativity and intellect, one might ask, why did such a profound shift emerge in specific regions at precise historical moments? Patterns of trade, knowledge exchange, and political alliances suggest not randomness but emergent order guided by subtle cues. A network of individuals who control access to information, financing, and intellectual hubs could indirectly direct these cultural waves. By guiding the dissemination of knowledge, a secret society could ensure that innovation unfolds along trajectories that stabilize social structures or prepare civilizations for future challenges. This is not a fanciful notion but a reflection of systemic thinking. Complex systems can be nudged without overt manipulation, and human history, as a complex adaptive system, is particularly sensitive to such nudges. The psychological mechanisms underpinning this influence are rooted in perception, trust, and social signaling. Humans are inherently pattern-seeking organisms. In evolutionary terms, identifying reliable sources of information conferred survival advantages. When a trusted figure, be it a scholar, leader, or institution, signals a particular belief or action, groups are more likely to adopt it, often unconsciously. This is where the notion of a secret society becomes particularly compelling. By embedding its members within positions of influence, religious institutions, courts, guilds, or financial center, such a society could shape collective behavior through subtle signaling. These signals are rarely explicit commands. They are patterns of attention, resources, and social cues that guide perception and decision-making across populations. In neuroscience, this mirrors the concept of top-down modulation, where higher-order brain regions influence sensory processing to prioritize certain stimuli. On a societal scale, information filters, cultural norms, and influential individuals perform analogous functions, steering collective attention and behavior in desired directions. The metaphor becomes even more revealing when we consider society as an energy network. Each individual contributes to the flow of information, resources, and influence akin to nodes transmitting electrical signals. Historical events are not isolated incidents but signals traveling through this network, amplified or dampened depending on structural connectivity and the responsiveness of nodes. A secret society, operating strategically, could act as a regulatory circuit, modulating the intensity and timing of signals to prevent systemic collapse or to accelerate adaptive changes. Wars, revolutions, economic crises, and scientific breakthroughs can be viewed as spikes or oscillations in this network, often appearing chaotic but, when analyzed, revealing patterns indicative of guided modulation. In this context, secrecy is not about hiding power but about preserving the integrity of the network. Open manipulation risks feedback loops that destabilize the system. Subtle guidance maintains resilience while achieving long-term objectives. Historical examples hint at such influence. Consider the intricate diplomacy of Renaissance city-states, the covert sponsorship of scientific inquiry during the Age of Enlightenment, or the financial networks underpinning early industrialization. In each case, certain actors, though largely invisible to popular narratives, shaped outcomes by facilitating the right ideas, resources, or alliances at critical moments. Their actions were neither omnipotent nor entirely predictable. Yet the systemic effects were profound, guiding the trajectories of societies without overt coercion. Philosophically, this challenges conventional narratives of power, suggesting that influence can be more effective when distributed subtly rather than exercised through brute force. The secret society, in this sense, is a metaphor for emergent control structures inherent to complex systems, where influence is diffused, indirect, and psychologically nuanced. Neuroscience provides an even deeper layer of insight. The human brain operates through networks of excitatory and inhibitory neurons, balancing excitation with constraint to maintain stability. Similarly, societies require mechanisms to balance innovation with tradition, aggression with cooperation, and decentralization with centralized coordination. A hidden network of actors could act as inhibitory or excitatory forces, amplifying beneficial innovations while suppressing destabilizing tendencies. Consider historical periods of sudden technological or philosophical leaps, often coinciding with periods of intense social stress. Such moments reveal the brain-like adaptive dynamics of societies, where careful modulation of inputs, ideas, resources, reveals the brain-like adaptive dynamics of societies, where careful modulation of inputs of societies, where careful modulation of inputs, ideas, resources. Alliances can steer collective responses toward resilience and growth, yet the ethical dimension is profound. A society that influences events from the shadows raises questions about autonomy, free will, and the nature of history itself. Are civilizations truly self-directed, or are they subject to subtle guidance from unseen networks? The answer lies in understanding the interplay between individual agency and systemic constraints. Just as neurons are not conscious of their role in cognition, individuals may be unaware of the larger forces shaping their decisions. Nevertheless, collective behavior emerges from these interactions, producing outcomes that can be both predictable and surprising. The secret society does not dictate every outcome. It nudges, steers, and creates conditions for desired trajectories, leaving room for human creativity and randomness to manifest. Let us examine a striking paradox. Moments when societies appear most vulnerable, chaotic or fractured, often coincide with interventions that preserve systemic integrity. The collapse of empires, for example, is rarely total. Rather, critical nodes, administrative, financial, intellectual, survive to stabilize subsequent structures. In some cases, the apparent chaos of revolution or war serves as a selective process, pruning maladaptive elements while promoting resilience. From a neuroscientific perspective, this mirrors homeostatic plasticity, where systems adjust to maintain functional equilibrium despite perturbations. A secret society, understanding these dynamics, could allow apparent disorder to unfold, knowing that the resulting adaptations strengthen the overall network. In other words, what appears as weakness or failure may, in fact, be a sophisticated mechanism of protection and long-term stabilization. Historical records, when read through this lens, reveal subtle fingerprints of systemic guidance. Consider the careful orchestration of alliances preceding major conflicts, the sponsorship of key scientific or artistic breakthroughs, or the timing of economic interventions. These are not arbitrary acts but interventions designed to shape the evolution of the social network, modulating the flow of information, power, and resources. The individuals involved often perceive themselves as facilitators rather than manipulators, understanding that true influence is effective only when invisible. when it aligns with the emergent logic of the system rather than imposing artificial order. Philosophically, this reframes our understanding of history from a linear narrative of events to a dynamic adaptive process. Civilization is not merely a sequence of kings, battles, and treaties. It is a complex system responding to pressures, generating patterns, and exhibiting resilience through adaptive modulation. The secret society becomes a lens through which we can interpret these patterns, not as conspiratorial puppeteers but as facilitators of systemic evolution. They demonstrate how knowledge of human behavior, social networks, and systemic dynamics can be applied subtly to guide civilizations without coercion. This perspective encourages us to reconsider agency, power, and the nature of historical causality, highlighting the profound interdependence between individual actions and collective outcomes. As we consider the implications of such influence, we must reflect on the psychological dimension. Humans are motivated by meaning, trust, and perceived control. A secret society operates effectively by aligning with these motivations, using social and cultural structures to nudge behavior. This is not manipulation in the crude sense, but strategic facilitation, exploiting cognitive biases, social heuristics, and perception filters to produce desired systemic effects. Modern psychology underscores the power of subtle cues, framing, and expectation in shaping decisions mechanisms as relevant today as they were centuries ago. By understanding these principles, the hidden actors could steer societies along trajectories that promote resilience, innovation, and stability, all while remaining invisible to the collective consciousness. The twist is compelling. The very moments when individuals or societies feel weakest, most confused, or most constrained often reflect underlying processes that protect long-term stability. Failures, crises, and conflicts are not necessarily signs of incompetence, but indicators of complex adaptive dynamics in action. Just as the brain sometimes weakens certain connections to strengthen overall function, societies undergo stress-induced recalibrations that preserve systemic integrity. The hidden network, operating from the shadows, leverages these dynamics to ensure that civilization adapts without catastrophic collapse. The implication is both unsettling and fascinating. What we perceive as chaos may be, in fact, a sophisticated form of historical intelligence. A system-level intervention designed to optimize the resilience and adaptability of human societies. In conclusion, history viewed through the lens of neuroscience, social psychology, and systemic thinking reveals the plausibility of hidden networks subtly shaping civilization. The secret society is less a shadowy cabal of conspirators and more a metaphor for the distributed, emergent control mechanisms inherent in complex adaptive systems. By understanding the principles of adaptation, perception, collective behavior, and systemic resilience, we gain insight into how human societies evolve, respond to stress, and maintain equilibrium across centuries. These insights challenge conventional notions of power, suggesting that true influence is most effective when subtle, informed by deep understanding and aligned with the emergent logic of social networks. History, then, is not merely a record of overt actions, but a tapestry of patterns, guided by forces that are rarely visible yet profoundly consequential. So as you reflect on this, ask yourself, what unseen structures shape your world today, and how much of history's trajectory is guided by forces you cannot see? Perhaps the greatest secret of all is not the existence of shadowy actors, but the realization that complex systems, including societies and civilizations, possess intrinsic intelligence, resilience, and adaptability. Recognizing this changes the way we interpret historical events, assess human behavior, and envision the future. It invites us to consider our own roles within these networks, understanding that our actions, perceptions, and decisions are both influenced by and influential upon the broader system. History is alive, adaptive, and far more intricate than surface narratives suggest. If this exploration of hidden patterns in history fascinated you, challenge your mind further by engaging with the ideas in the comments, sharing your thoughts on historical influences you find intriguing, and subscribing to Past Lens for more deep dives into the forces that quietly shape human civilization. Let us continue to uncover the unseen threads that connect past, present, and future, exploring the intelligence embedded in the fabric of history itself.